Right, it's going to be a late one. This is a homebrew Wednesday. Filmed on a Thursday. It probably might not even get uploaded till Friday. I'm a little bit more oiled up on Ben's Idle Valley Stout. Just a couple of things. The saison that I'm doing at the brewery is kind of not quite got to the 28 degrees that I wanted to get to. I don't really quite know why the brew belt can't seem to get it up to the high 28. It's kind of the temperature probe that's on the fermenting vessel says that it's running at about 24.5. The other temperature probe I've got in there, which is kind of is just floating in the air, says the ambient air temperature is 28. So, you know, it's hard to kind of gauge if it's at 24, 25. I'm guessing it's around 25, which ain't too bad. It's higher than what you're meant to ferment out, so it's still going to produce something a bit interesting in flavour. But I'm not quite sure how else I can ever get that temperature up to the full 28. I'm running two heating sources at the same time, so the tube heater is running from the bottom, and the brew belt's running on the actual fermenting vessel. But I haven't actually put a temperature probe in the actual wall to find out the temperature inside. I mean, I take mine to the side of it with a bit of bubble wrap over it. A lot of other people do that, but I don't really want to put anything inside it and risk, like, you know, contaminate. Once I put a lid on it, I kind of just leave it alone and don't open it. I do know the ferment's been very active. It's right up to the lid and it's almost pushing it off, but it hasn't quite yet. It's got a blow off tube on it, so I'm not too worried about that. But it just doesn't seem to have got to that high temperature, and I don't know how else to do it. I mean, it could be that the fridge isn't as insulated as it could be, but I have padded the door out, and I kind of think the sides are already as insulated as they're going to be without kind of putting it into another kind of box thing itself. I might have to kind of look into something that's a little bit different than a fridge, kind of making kind of like a self-made insulation box kind of thing with like a inner and outer skin, and fermenting in that when I know I'm just fermenting at a hot temperature kind of thing, and I haven't got to have too much cooling on it. But I don't know, that's something I've got to look into. I've got mash tun problems. The little mash tun that I use at my flat, I kind of didn't go down the manifold route. I thought I'd go with I forgot the name of it, bazooka filter, which I've got here. But I find the holes are kind of too big. It lets a lot of grain through. These I think are great probably, and I haven't used it for that as a actual hop stopper for leaf hops. But I think they say these holes are 1 mil holes. But for some of the grain bits, they really do sort of come through. So I gave up on that after kind of like one mash that I did in that, and the beer did turn out right, but I kind of felt that I had a lot of debris in it, which does all settle out. But I'd prefer that when I run off, it runs off a lot clearer. I then switched to like the braided hose that everyone uses, with just like a little half-inch nipple that went on the inside of the tun. I literally just cable tied the other end, and the holes are quite fine in that. And I used that twice. So one brew that I did, which was the Columbus Brown that I sent out, that turned out fine. Had a little bit of a kind of a stuck sparge halfway through, where I just blew into the end of the tube. It restarted and it ran off fine. But I thought to myself that the drain was very slow from that, so I thought, because that pipe was so thin, I'd upgrade it to a slightly thicker course on, which was I think a 15mm one, and got like a full stainless clip on there and that, and then just cable tied the other one. I come to use this the other day, and twice I had a stuck sparge. The first time I was using rye, and I thought that the rye had caused a stuck sparge, because it can cause it if you use more than, I think, about 10 or 15% in the whole of the grain quantity. The gelatinous kind of properties of it causes, like the thickening can basically cause a stuck sparge. I did use rice hulls because I've heard that helps free it up, but it didn't kind of work. It got stuck. I just gave up and I just chucked the mash away. I couldn't be bothered to kind of mess around with it any longer. I tried switching out back to this one, and it was still stuck, and I gave up. Then a week later I tried to do a basic bitter, thinking that it was the rye. It still didn't work again. It just wouldn't run off. halfway through the mash, I thought I'll just chance it. I disinfected a glove with Star San, dipped my hand in the boiling hot, well not boiling hot, but quite hot mash tun. Took this out and I thought I'd stab a load of holes in it. And I did kind of like make some of the holes a little bit bigger, but it still wouldn't run off. I'm not sure. It's not getting crushed under the weight of the grain because that's quite solid, and I'm only using mini batches, so it's only kind of about 2.5 kilos of grain to 3 kilos of grain. If it could be because it's floating, you know, there's no weight in it, but most of the time it's still within enough fluid to drain off, and it wasn't draining off. So I had to throw another mash, and it was just getting really frustrating. So I'm kind of at the point where I can't bother to spend more money on a manifold to put that in there. And what I don't understand is many people use these with no problems. Maybe it's just my shitty luck that I have a problem. I watched Peanut Brewery today. He's got a very similar thing in his porta potty mash tun, where he's just got one of these, and he did the thing where he was doing his first run-ins or the voil off, and the tap was open full speed, and the water was just rushing out, and it looked clear as day. And a lot of people use these, and when they do the runoff, they open the tap fully, and it comes out clear, and it works for them. Now other people, and I was chatting to Hammer Homebrew about this today, and I've always done it with my other setup, is to run off very slowly, because I've fly sparged before, is to open very slowly, do the void off, add it back, then do the runoff, and let it run off very slowly, because apparently from what a lot of sources say, it helps with efficiency. But from what I've heard and a lot of other people say, when you've got something like as fine as that, it doesn't matter if you have the tap fully open. They say that it's not a necessity, it's a benefit. You can do that, but you don't have to. And then other people still say you should do a slow runoff. Either way, it was even if I tried to run it slow, it wouldn't come out any faster than what the slow runoff was. So I've kind of given up on using any of these for the moment. They just don't seem to work for me. I don't know why that is, but that did work to do one beer, and now it won't work, which I don't understand. So what I've decided to do, I bought a grain bag, and this is I think it's a Ritchie's grain bag, and to be honest, I thought it would be bigger than that. You can't probably see how small it actually is. It's a size, but I thought it would be a lot deeper than that. The sides seem to be quite fine, and then the bottom is quite coarse. My thinking is I'm going to line the mash tun with that, put the grain in it, and it'd be plenty room for the 2.5 kilos I'm using for 15 litres or 10 litres. And then put the mash in that, mash as I would normally, sparge as I would normally, and then basically use that as my filter and run off. At least until I've used the grain I've got, which brings me on to the point that I think the grain that I've got, which I got pre-crushed, might be too fine for what I'm using. I don't know. I mean, I looked at some of the grain, other grain, people's grains that's pre-crushed, and it looks quite similar to what mine looks like. So I don't understand why, you know, it's not working. But it's not working for me. So I'm going to go for the mashing bag, and then I'm thinking eventually that I don't want to pay for someone to make a custom made one. I might kind of like, I'd love to get like a sewing machine or something and to do my own one kind of thing, because there's a lot of people charging silly money for, which is essentially like curtain material stitched or double stitched with nylon thread. Crazy money. Let's have a sip of this. My throat is really bad. Thanks to Ant Rogerson, he sent some beers down to Brewmaster Ben, and there was a couple in there for me. I've got a Russian Imperial Stout and a Camden Pearl to have, so they'll be being reviewed soon once they've settled out. I've been chatting with him today. There's also going to be some beers sent up to him. I've messaged G.R. Fry. I'm going to send some beer to him because he's doing the triple tykes, which I did and thought was absolutely cack. So I'm going to send him the one that I did sort of like straight up as a kit, just so you can see how rubbish it is without kind of dry hopping, which is a bit annoying because the suppliers kind of sell it as like this kit that's got the most malt extract you can get for the money and how it's meant to be really great, and I thought it would be kind of a real simple great session bitter, but it's got this kit twang still to it, and I think because it hasn't got like major dry hopping to it, it hasn't hidden that. And I think the kit twang doesn't come from the tin cans like everyone keeps saying. Me and Hammer Homebrew have discussed this as well. It's got to be something to do with whatever's in the malt extract. There must be some kind of preservative in there to allow that product to stay on the shelf for as long as it does. Because a lot of these tins, when you get like the Cooper's one, they've got some crazy kind of life dates on them. And I'm just thinking there's something in there that doesn't break down properly, or it's not hidden unless you dry hop it enough that you can detect. I mean, if you've got these new kits, they come in like a little bag, like a bladder bag thing. It can't be the metal of the tin, can it, anymore, of the tin can, if it's in a new packaging. It's got to be something to do with the actual malt extract itself that's giving this kind of twang, or, you know, the taste that people taste. I've got a few new subscribers this week. I think I'm nearly at like 250 now, so thanks to everyone that's subscribed recently. I found the homebrew shop that I've ordered the Kappa from. I think it is on its way. They said that they've got 15 on order from Italy, but it's coming in Italy time, so it's taken a while. I put a little order in with Malt Miller because they've started stocking a few extra things, and one of the main things was a bottle brush. Not one of the most exciting things, but because I do a lot of bottling, often they don't last very long after a few batches. But at Malt Miller for £2, they've got this kind of it's quite big, it's about like 2 foot long, but it's got this little end brush at the end, which is really great, because a lot of the bottles that I get from certain people, they don't wash a bottle out like most home brewers. We drink a beer, we wash it out, ready for next time. They drink a beer, they chuck it somewhere. So that little end bit is really good for getting like the crud that's off the bottom of the bottle. I don't know exactly how long it'll last, because to be honest, most bottle brushes, however expensive or well made, don't last very long. But for like £2, you can't go wrong. I think I'll be ordering a lot more of them if it works out well. I also got some champagne corks and cages. Reason being is I wanted to cork some champagne bottles with the saison or other kind of beers that I'm going to do, kind of sort of make them a little bit nicer to give to people at Christmas time, or you know, just to make them a bit more presentable. But often than not, you need a floor capper, real kind of heavy industrial type thing to cap them. And in the week on Twitter, I noticed that Rob from the Malt Miller had said that the capper, or sorry, the corker that he sells, which is pretty much exactly the same as the one that I've already got, which he seems to be the cheapest place selling it, by the way, if you want to get one. This is like the twin lever. You put the cork in there, and then it gets a bit narrower, so it compresses the cork. That grips around the bottle, and as you push down, the piston comes down, pushes the cork in. And he said that you could cap a champagne bottle with that, with a little bit of practice. And I tried putting the cork in it tonight, and I thought that feels a little bit tight. I don't know if it's going to go in, but it does. I will admit I pushed it in too far to start with. Had to extract it with a corkscrew a little bit. But you can see that I've got one in there, and he says, and I've read it elsewhere as well, eventually it does mushroom on its own, kind of thing, like a traditional thing. And obviously it'll have your cage around it. Your cage has a little twist on the end. You can get a special tool to twist it, but most people, and he says as well, you can just put a biro in there, twist it round, keeps the mushroom on, and then you'd have a champagne bottle full of, you know, nice beer or sparkling cider, or, you know, champagne if you're really making it. And obviously thanks to Ben as well for supplying me with the champagne bottles. He gave me about 6 it was of these, so thanks to that. They seem to be quite hard to come by this time of year. I should have kind of started collecting them at Christmas time. I got a few hops from Malt Miller as well. I've particularly got some pellets. I've never used pellets before, but I'm going to do a very simple beer recipe that I've seen Basic Brewing do recently, and it was one of the simplest beers I've ever seen done, and I kind of think that if it turns out well, it could be a go-to way of making quick batch of beer that's ready in a couple of weeks, that takes minimal amount of time, kind of like a little stopgap between other beer kits and whatnot. I think that's about it. Uncle Jonah got 500 subscribers this week, which I think is pretty cool. I think I want to see Uncle Jonah brew some more beer. He's put out some good content in the past, but I want to see him make some more beer videos. Maybe do an all grain video. I don't do a lot of beer videos myself, you know, so I can't really preach, but I'd like to see him do a grain recipe, something a bit different kind of thing on camera. So I think that's about it. So till next time, cheers.